As you can tell, it was all business today here in San Juan, Puerto Rico at the 104th American Farm Bureau Convention. I'm Ty Higgins, and this is Policy Points. Joining us to talk about today's policy session is Brandon Kern, Senior Director of State and National Policy with Ohio Farm Bureau. Jack Irvin is Vice President of Public Policy with the organization. Welcome to you both, and really important day for the American Farm Bureau, and a lot of things that we're going to be talking about today, really important here for the next year. 5-10 years down the road, especially when it comes to the Farm Bill, something that we're going to be talking hot and heavy about here over the next couple of months as we begin to put that legislation together. Really a big part of today's conversation.
It was a big part of today's conversation, it really was. And you know, we've got pretty robust policy on the Farm Bill, but you know, every Farm Bill is a little bit unique, and going into this year there's been a lot of discussions about you know, what we want to achieve in the Farm Bill. We've had a working group that I've been a part of, and other members have been a part of for the better part of a year now, trying to put together our policy and suggestions for additional policy that we may need. And you know, one of the things we've been talking about, for example, is are we in a position this year to potentially look at increasing reference prices under our Title I commodity programs, for example. We didn't have a specific policy that necessarily led us there. You know, we adopted a new policy that puts us in position to be able to ask for that type of change in this upcoming Farm Bill. One of the things that has really developed in the last couple of years since the last time we've passed a Farm Bill is a lot of talk about climate initiatives, carbon sequestration, those types of things, and how much we want those types of policies to be interwoven in the Farm Bill program, so our conservation programs, but then also you think about crop insurance, for example. There's been a lot of talk about concepts of, you know, requirements or interweaving some of these carbon sequestration ideas in with, you know, as a prerequisite to having crop insurance. And we staked out pretty clear policy today that we don't support that approach. So while we support a lot of different approaches on climate, we don't support interweaving that with things like crop insurance. And that's, you know, that was an important dialogue that the delegates had today. So the Farm Bill, you know, is going to get pretty hot and heavy here with the legislative process in Congress, and we passed some really important policy today that's going to help guide the advocacy under that piece of legislation.
Yeah, advocacy is where it all starts with Farm Bureau, of course, and we're going to be making a lot of efforts on that front. We have almost half of Congress that have never worked on a Farm Bill before, so a lot of education needs to go into this over the next couple of months.
Yes, and we're going to start pretty immediately. You know, we're going to take a big group in March. To all of our county presidents are going to go in March and meet with their members of Congress. We're going to start to do some outreach very soon with our members of Congress about just educating them on the importance of the Farm Bill, what the Farm Bill is, what it does, why it's so important to agriculture, why it's so important to food security. And so we're going to start that process pretty immediately, and the new policy that's passed today will help guide what we say there.
Jack, you mentioned climate, and something we've really started talking about a couple of years ago. That conversation is building. What did we find out on the floor today about where AFBF is on the climate front?
I think the big thing for Farm Bureaus is to recognize we're a very diverse group, right? Utah and Ohio, not the same. Agriculture is a lot different. So continue to push for those recognition. It's regional differences. It's even difference on the farm, right? So voluntary, market-driven, you know, leaving room and space for us as an industry to engage, to be leaders, but not have some regulatory body or some governmental authority kind of dictate how that looks. Because, you know, these farmers here know better than anybody. There's no two farms are the same, certainly no two states the same, and we have to recognize those differences.
How much of an advantage does Ohio have, being that we have programs like H2 Ohio? I mean, many of the programs we see in that program would work inside of a climate smart attitude as well.
Yeah. Currently, a lot of the private-driven, you know, climate smart programs that are out there that, you know, maybe they're an organization that you can contract with for, say, some carbon credits. A lot of those activities are driven by cover crops, or at least focused that way. Cover crops, tillage practices, a lot of things that Ohioans have been doing for, you know, arguably decades. So I think certainly a lot of the things that we've been engaged with over the year, we're far ahead of the curve, and well positioned in the future for anything that might be coming down the pike.
This is where all the policy comes together from the state farm bureaus, the county farm bureaus, and Ohio had quite a bit of success on the floor today here in San Juan.
Yeah, we did. We had 8 or 9 policies that came from Ohio that were adopted as a part of the delegate session today. So I think that's It's a great contribution, and I think even more important is really substantive policy in a couple of areas based on experiences that we've had in Ohio. Something that kind of comes to the forefront for me is our experience over the last year as a state with the EPA and approval of ag technologies, and some of the struggle that Ohio farmers had with how the EPA handled the renewal of a particular process, a particular herbicide called Enlist 3, which is used by a lot of soybean growers in Ohio. And basically the scenario played out last year that for those growers who use that product, kind of the rules of the game changed overnight when the new label was approved, because it had new restricted use that had not been on the prior label. And one of the policies that came from Ohio this year is basically says, EPA, you can't do that. You can't change the rules of the game, right? So our guiding principle is going to be, as we advocate and with the EPA in the future, is even if you do change the restricted uses of products like that, you've got to give growers more lead time to be able to adopt. It can't be an overnight type of thing. And so that's a policy that comes directly from experience from Ohio farmers. County policy was pushed up, it was adopted at our state annual meeting, and now is here in front of delegates at the AFBF meeting, and it was accepted today as well.
We work with EPA a lot, but very rarely do we get involved with the SEC, and that was another message that came out of this meeting in San Juan, is stay in your own lane.
Yeah, it's absolutely, we've been, our members have reacted to the proposal that the SEC's had to require reporting of greenhouse gas emissions by companies, publicly traded companies, supply chains, which could go on down to the farm, and Ohio Farm Bureau members have been very reactive to that. We've issued action alerts on that issue. They've been really engaged on that issue, and we sent new policy on that topic from Ohio to the delegation today, which was approved as well. So another area, it's another great example of just how active our members in Ohio have been on national policy.
Jack, one of the things that fascinates me about sessions that we have today with American Farm Bureau is just the diversity of agriculture across the country. A lot of different ideas, a lot of different needs and wants and desires by state farm bureaus, all 50 of them in Puerto Rico. Coming off of the floor today, after all was said and done, what would you say the attitude was?
It's a great attitude, a lot of positive energy. So one of the main highlights this week was family. Mi Familia was the theme of the week. And, Farm Bureau is just a big family. Like every family, we don't agree on everything. We're going to disagree. We're going to have, some passionate discussions. But at the end of the day, we come together because we're going to have the same vision, the same focus, and we're going forward. And I think for me, one of the things I'm always most impressed with is how many of the policies that we're working on that we know are not going to have a really near-term impact. We're looking 10, 20, 30, 40 years out for some of these things that we're working on. And just how amazing it is to see, our delegates down here advocating for positions they know aren't going to personally benefit them. They'll be long gone. But that next generation, or even 2 generations from now, is going to benefit from a lot of the work that's being done here today. And that's exciting to see, and just gives you energy to think about that long-term success.
Mi Familia was pretty big here in San Juan from Ohio, almost 200 of us from the Buckeye State. We couldn't be more proud of the accomplishments we had, including our 14 counties that were recognized for County Activity of Excellence Awards by American Farm Bureau, and not to mention the young ag professionals, Mike Hanawald, who won the nationwide discussion meet, and also Stacy Anderson, who won the Excellence in Ag Award from American Farm Bureau. So a very, very successful week here in San Juan, Puerto Rico at the 104th AFBF Convention. Jack Irvin is Vice President of Public Policy with Ohio Farm Bureau, and Brandon Kern is Senior Director of State and National Policy with the organization. This has been Policy Points. I'm Ty Higgins. See you down the road.